Okay, good morning. Today, being January 5th, we're going to take a look at lesson number 5 from the Workbook of A Course in Miracles. I am never upset for the reason I think. And as I went through the lesson, a number of things stood out that I feel, might be important to mention. Number one is, obviously, part of what we're learning in this lesson is that all upsets are equal. And at the level where we experience them emotionally, certainly it wouldn't seem that way because there's various degrees of intensity. There's various degrees of concern about the upset. There's various degrees as to how much we become obsessed with what we think we're upset about. So in that regard, that couldn't be what the lesson is talking about when it says they're all equal. But when you look at the goal that we're attempting to reach through the application of the lessons, and the goal that the Course is here to help make manifest in your own mind, heart, and experience, then we can begin to understand a little bit about what he's talking about. So if we picked a goal, and let's say, as the lesson does, the goal is peace. If our goal is peace, then it wouldn't matter to what degree we get upset, mild to wild. Any upset would be an equal bar to our ability to experience the peace of God. And, there's spots in the Course, is placed in the text that said the goal of this Course is not knowledge. The goal of the Course is peace. So if we looked at this lesson, we're only on day 5, and Jesus is already bringing to mind our ability to achieve the goal by showing us what is keeping us from achieving it. Now, the reason why I find it important is peace is the state of mind or condition of mind that allows knowledge to dawn of itself upon the mind that has discovered a moment of the peace of God that passeth understanding. In that instant, when your mind does light upon that experience of peace, what occurs naturally and of itself is the loss of the resistance to access, to your personal access to the kingdom of God, which is what and where peace emanates from. So if the goal of the Course is peace, and knowledge springs or dawns on a peaceful mind, then we can see how important it is in our pursuit to finally discover how we can achieve peace, so that we can begin to be imbued and remember the knowledge of the kingdom by whose laws all things operate. So that's a giant step in our learning. Because if you achieve peace in regard to any single incident, you're able to generalize it, and you would be able to find peace in other circumstances. And in those moments of peace, the knowledge of the kingdom, the laws of the kingdom, begin to be made plain to you. And then, in the utilization of those laws and in the experience of the knowledge, we can begin to understand how we can be in the world, but not of the world. So if we look at the lesson a little bit closer, one of the things that he's very clear about is the need to name what upsets us very specifically. So it says, I am not angry at Frank because he took my lunch money. I'm not angry at Frank for the reason that I think. No, I'm not angry at my wife because she seems to interrupt me in the middle of a football game. Now, if we're not angry or never upset for the reason that we think, one may wonder what is the importance of actually naming the perceived reason why we think we're upset. Now, if we remember that the Course is a course in being able to change our mind and get different results from our thinking, have a different experience, then the admission of what we're thinking becomes important in our ability to recognize that we can, in fact, change our minds and think of the same event in an entirely different way, but without admitting to the way we were actually thinking about it, we wouldn't really be able to recognize that our minds had been changed. And, being conscious and being aware is part of the program. Learning to become more and more conscious, as I said, moving from the condition of forgetting our reality to the condition of being forgiving enough so that there's momentary increments of the experience of what we are as real, of what we are as whole, of what we are as perfect. And here on day 5, what we're being told is that it's possible for us to begin to achieve that. Now, it's going to take practice. It's going to take practice to be able to become consistent at this. But if you're following along with what's being offered, you begin to see the reasonability and the rationale behind the lessons and why they're written exactly the way they are. So we're going about our day. We have all these ideas about what we get upset for this. We're upset because we're in a car or driving to work and we're late and somebody cuts us off. I'm not angry at the driver for the reason I think, although I must admit to it, because when I admit to it, I could begin to eliminate reasons why I could be angry. Now, we don't have to go and find. It's not about, although we're advised to search our mind, but this is why it says, then search your mind for no more than a minute or so, and try to identify a number of different forms of upset that are disturbing to you, regardless of the relative importance you may give them. Now, why do we not have to find all of them? Because for the purpose of the exercises, one upset is just like any other upset. If we can begin to see in our daily life any number of incidences in a day that we get upset, and yet we discover that's not really why we're upset, then what starts to happen is it generalizes to all of the upsets we've ever experienced, all the upsets we will ever experience in the future. And that begins the loosening of the grip that these grievances have had on our mind, because we've given them equal weight in regards to the outcome that we're pursuing, which is the peace of God. So now they've been removed from our old framework of thinking that different forms of upset produce different symptoms, and different symptoms can be dealt with in different ways, and different degrees of our being upset mean there's a hierarchy of needs that we must attend to. All of that thinking begins to fall away when we begin to recognize that any upset of any kind is equally disturbing to our ability to experience peace. And that's part of the way our mind is being retrained is being loosened from the past way of thinking. This is an interesting line. You may also find yourself less willing to apply today's idea to some perceived sources of upset than to others. If this occurs, think first of this. I cannot keep this form and let go of others for the purpose of the exercise, then I will regard them as all the same. I mean, if we've decided that some forms of upset are more important and therefore more useful, then nothing's going to change our mind, and yet any upset is going to block the way for peace to dawn on us. There's a reevaluation going on. There's a reevaluation going on within the factoring of your own mind. And as we change our value system from valuing what's valueless, like an upset, or defending ourselves as a manner of protecting ourselves, as we change our value system and we begin to value that which is true and not necessarily of the world, but of us, then naturally the way we begin to think and perceive things in light of the value system will begin to change. And make no mistake about it, the ego is always at play here, because none of us are in a condition where we have no ego. And I doubt that anybody is ever going to get to a condition where they have no ego. I think what you do is you get to this point where you recognize what the ego does, you recognize what buying into the ego costs you, and you're less and less willing to pay the price that the ego demands upon you and upon the life that you're living. So, again, don't become preoccupied with attempting to find all and every single reason that you may be upset. That's not the way we heal. We don't have to recognize every single thing we've ever been upset about. But we do have to recognize that within the parameters of the mind training, every single upset that we've ever experienced from the beginning of time until the end of time has the same function, and that's to hide the light of love, the peace of God, from us. So as we advance, as we pursue these lessons, the more we devote our energy, our attention, the more we give attention to the exercises, the more we allow these momentary incursions into right-minded thinking to present us with experiences to reinforce the goal, the greater our motivation to include more and more of what would be the egoic thinking into what we're willing to have changed, until finally the entire mindset is altered. Not based on some linear recognition of events that have to be looked at and released, but based on the ability for us to look at all events in our life through an equalizing light that frees us from past thinking in every way and allows us these new moments of recognition of light, of recognition of peace. And I assure you, when you come upon the peace of God that passeth understanding, and your mind for that instant flips into that which is no longer of space and time, but is of the eternal and the infinite, right there you will get a glimpse. Some people call them downloads Some people call them rotes. You will get a glimpse, a download, a momentary, spontaneous recognition of the reality of the kingdom and the laws that govern it as being part and parcel to what you are even here and now. And then you can utilize those new principles, those new laws, as ways of demonstrating to yourself that kingdom of heaven is the real thing. It's a kingdom of abundance, where all things are made new. It's a realm of infinite and eternal source supply, which can be utilized by us because it is our inheritance. So that's sort of a look at today's lesson. I'm never upset for the reason that I think. I'm never worried about money for the reason I think. I never am worried about anything of the world for the reason that I think. But it's important that we admit to the reason that we think we're worried in order to see in moments of honest admission how we have been thinking, so that as these new instances of light recognition enter into us, we can begin to understand that our minds are truly being changed. So thanks for that.